Ethan was just a boy when he first met Lyra. He lived on a small human colony planet called Veralia, a place where humans and the Lunarians, a mysterious alien species, tried to live side by side. The planet was beautiful with skies painted in shades of violet and rivers that glowed faintly under the moonlight. But for Ethan, it often felt empty because his parents were busy working long hours in the colony's mining fields. He spent most of his time exploring the outskirts of the settlement where the dense forests met the edge of Lunarian territory. It was during one of these explorations that he first saw her. She was sitting by a pool of shimmering water, her skin glowing faintly like the stars above, her silver hair flowing in the breeze. At first Ethan had been scared because the Lunarians were different from humans. Their large luminous eyes and slender frames made them look almost fragile, yet there was a quiet strength in the way she carried herself. She looked up when she noticed him watching, and instead of being afraid, she smiled. A small, soft smile that made him feel as if the world had suddenly become warmer. Ethan approached slowly and asked her name. She said it softly, Lyra, and he thought it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. From that day forward, the two children met often near the forest pool. They would talk for hours, sharing stories about their people, their hopes, and their dreams. Ethan would bring her small gifts like sweets from the human colony or smooth stones he found in the forest. Lyra would teach him Lunarian songs that made the air around them shimmer with faint light. The more they met, the closer they became, and soon Ethan could not imagine a day without seeing her. He knew many humans in the colony did not trust the Lunarians. Some even looked at them with suspicion and fear. But Ethan never felt that way about Lyra. She was gentle and kind and always listened to him as if his words truly mattered. One evening, when the twin moons of Veralia were shining bright in the sky, Ethan and Lyra sat together by the pool. He could see a shadow of sadness in her glowing eyes, and when he asked why she looked that way, she told him that some of the humans had been saying cruel things to her family, that they did not belong here and should go back to their world. Ethan felt anger rise in his small chest, and he took her hand, promising that he would always be by her side. Lyra gave a small laugh at his seriousness, but Ethan only held her hand tighter. He told her that when they grew older he would marry her so that she would never feel alone again. Lyra's eyes widened in surprise and then softened. She asked if he really meant it, and Ethan nodded with all the determination a young boy could have. He said he would grow strong. He would protect her and stay with her forever. Lyra smiled at him, a little shyly, and said she would hold on to that promise, but the world around them was not kind. A few weeks later, the colony was attacked by raiders from the outer systems. They were ruthless pirates who took whatever they could find and destroyed what they could not. The human settlement was thrown into chaos as alarms rang through the night. Ethan remembered being pulled away by his mother as they ran for the shelters, but he could only think of Lyra. He fought against his mother's grip, shouting that he had to find her, but it was too late. The Lunarians had already begun to evacuate their people, retreating deeper into their territories and beyond. Ethan searched desperately in the days that followed, running to the forest pool where they had first met, calling her name again and again. But she never came. The colony rebuilt itself slowly after the attack, but for Ethan, everything felt different. Lyra and her people had left, forced to move far from the human settlement because they feared another raid. The adults told him it was for the best, that the Lunarians would be safer on the other side of the galaxy. But Ethan could not understand why the world had taken away the person who meant the most to him. At night he would hold on to the small crystal Lyra had given him during one of their secret meetings. It glowed faintly in the dark, like her skin used to, and Ethan would whisper to it, promising that one day he would find her again. He would grow older, he would become strong, and he would keep the promise he had made under the twin moons of Veralia. Years passed, and the memory of Lyra never faded from his heart. Though others told him that childhood promises did not last forever, Ethan knew his was different. He could still remember the warmth of her hand in his, the sadness in her eyes when she felt unwanted, and the soft way she had smiled when he vowed to be by her side. No matter how far she was, he would not forget. He was just a boy when he made the promise, but even then, deep inside, he understood what it meant. One day he would find her again, and when that day came, he would make sure she knew that his words had always been true. Ethan grew older as the years went by and life on the colony of Veralia slowly returned to normal, but his heart never truly healed from the day Lyra and her people left. He still carried the small glowing crystal she had given him and kept it hidden in a pouch close to his chest no matter where he went. He joined the colony's training academy when he was old enough, because he wanted to become stronger and learn the skills that would help him survive in the vast galaxy. Ethan pushed himself harder than anyone else in his class. When others grew tired, he kept going. When his body ached, he reminded himself of the promise he had made under the moons of Veralia, and he refused to give up. His instructors saw his determination and often praised him for his focus, but no one truly understood the reason behind it. Time passed quickly as the training became tougher. Ethan learned to fly small ships first, and later advanced starfighters. He studied navigation and how to survive in the most dangerous parts of space. He learned combat techniques to protect himself and others in case of attack. Despite the challenges, he thrived because every skill he mastered felt like one more step toward finding Lyra. Even when his fellow trainees told stories about their plans for the future, about jobs and families they hoped to have, Ethan kept quiet. He already knew what his future would be. He would search for the Lunarians, and he would keep his promise to the girl who had once smiled at him by the glowing forest pool. One night after a long day of training, Ethan sat alone in his small quarters staring at the crystal. It still glowed softly even after all those years, and he imagined Lyra holding it before she had given it to him. He whispered to it, just as he used to do when he was a boy, telling her that he would find her no matter where in the galaxy she was. Sometimes, he wondered if she even remembered him, or if she had moved on with her life among her people, but he quickly pushed those thoughts away. He had to believe she remembered, because that hope was the fire that kept him moving forward. When he finally graduated from the academy, he joined the human space fleet. He was assigned to a patrol unit that guarded the outer colonies from raiders and hostile alien factions. The work was dangerous, but it gave him a chance to travel farther than he had ever gone before. Each new sector he visited, Ethan quietly searched for any sign of the Lunarians. He asked questions carefully so as not to draw too much attention, because many humans still looked down on alien species, and he did not want anyone mocking his mission. Years went by, and still he found nothing, but Ethan never let the disappointment crush him. He kept reminding himself that the galaxy was vast, and it could take time to find the people he was looking for. One day his unit intercepted a distress call from a trading convoy that had been attacked by a group of pirates. As they rescued the surviving traders, Ethan overheard a rumor about a hidden Lunarian enclave far beyond the mapped regions of space. The traders said the Lunarians had been forced into hiding after being targeted by several alien factions, and that no one dared enter their territory because it was too dangerous. Ethan felt his heart race when he heard this, because it was the first real lead he had gotten in years. He went to his commanding officer and requested permission to investigate, but his request was denied. They told him it was too risky and that his duty was to stay with his unit. Ethan spent the next few nights thinking about what to do. He knew that leaving without permission could cost him his position in the fleet, but he also knew that if he stayed, he might never find Lyra. The memory of her face, the sound of her voice, and the promise he had made burned in his mind. Finally, he decided he could not wait any longer. He gathered supplies, prepared his personal starship, and set a course for the uncharted regions where the Lunarians were rumored to be. The journey was long and lonely. Ethan traveled through sectors filled with strange planets and hostile forces. He had to outmaneuver pirates and avoid detection by warlords who controlled entire star systems. There were moments when his ship barely survived attacks and times when he was sure he would fail, but the thought of Lyra kept him going. He imagined finding her again, seeing her smile, and telling her that he had never once broken his promise. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan reached the edge of the known galaxy. His ship's systems were strained from constant travel, and he was running low on supplies, but he refused to turn back. One evening, as he floated silently among the stars, he took out the crystal once more and held it close. It still glowed softly as if it were guiding him forward, and he whispered to it, asking it to help him find her. Just as hope was beginning to fade, his ship's sensors detected faint energy signatures in a nearby nebula. The readings were strange, almost as if a cloaking field was hiding something. Ethan's heart pounded as he guided his ship carefully through the dense clouds of gas. He wondered if this was finally it, if he had reached the place where the Lunarians were hiding. But as he neared the source of the energy, alarms suddenly blared through the cockpit. Several enemy ships appeared out of nowhere, weapons armed and ready. Before he could react, they fired. Ethan jerked the controls sharply, and his ship shuddered from the impact. He returned fire, but the attackers were skilled, and their numbers were overwhelming. He knew he could not win a direct fight. With quick thinking, he activated his ship's stealth systems and dove deeper into the nebula, hoping to lose them in the thick clouds. Explosions lit up the darkness behind him as the enemy continued their pursuit. His hands gripped the controls tightly as he weaved through debris and swirling gases. He had come too far to fail now. At last the enemy ships lost track of him and turned back. Ethan's ship was badly damaged but still operational. He took a deep breath and continued forward, following the energy signature. After what felt like hours, the nebula cleared and a hidden world came into view. It was a lush planet surrounded by massive rings of shimmering ice and light. Ethan felt awe and relief flood through him because he knew this was no ordinary world. This had to be the refuge of the Lunarians, and somewhere down there, Lyra might be waiting. Ethan's ship entered the orbit of the hidden planet with its engines barely holding together after the chase through the nebula, and he could feel the vibration of damaged parts shaking the cockpit floor under his boots. He had no idea how the Lunarians would react if they discovered a human ship entering their refuge, but he had no other choice. He guided the craft carefully through the thin atmosphere and saw that the planet was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Its surface glowed with soft blue light from endless forests of bioluminescent trees, while crystal-clear rivers cut through the land like shining threads of silver. Strange winged creatures soared high above the glowing canopy, and the sky was lit by multiple moons that seemed to watch over the world like silent guardians. For a moment, Ethan forgot the danger and simply felt the awe of being on a planet untouched by human hands. But the moment was short-lived. When his ship's warning lights began flashing furiously again, a voice broke through his communicator demanding that he identify himself. It was soft but firm and carried an accent that he recognized immediately. It was the same melodic tone that the Lunarians had when speaking. Ethan answered quickly, explaining that he meant no harm and that he was searching for someone named Lyra. There was a long silence on the other end, and he feared they might destroy his ship before he could even land. At last the voice ordered him to follow the coordinates they were sending and to deactivate his weapon systems. Ethan complied without hesitation and allowed his damaged ship to be guided toward a landing zone deep inside a lush valley surrounded by glowing cliffs. When he stepped out of the ship, he was surrounded by a group of Lunarians holding energy staffs that glowed with a pale golden light. Their expressions were cautious and untrusting as they approached. Ethan raised his hands to show that he was unarmed and asked again if Lyra was here. The leader of the group, a tall figure whose skin shimmered brighter than the others, looked at him carefully and asked why a human would travel so far for a single Lunarian. Ethan felt his heart pound in his chest as he spoke from the deepest part of his soul. He told them about the promise he had made as a boy and how he had never once forgotten Lyra. He told them that he had crossed the galaxy to find her because she was the one person who had ever truly understood him. For a moment the Lunarians seemed unsure, but then the leader finally nodded and told Ethan to follow. They led him through a path lit by glowing plants and crystals until they reached a large Lunarian settlement hidden within the valley. The structures were unlike human buildings and seemed to grow out of the ground itself, curving gracefully toward the sky. Ethan's eyes searched desperately among the glowing figures, hoping to see a face he had not seen in years. Then suddenly, he saw her. Lyra stood at the edge of the crowd looking at him with wide eyes. She was no longer the small, shy girl he remembered, but a strong and beautiful woman now. Her silver hair shimmered like flowing water, and her luminous eyes held the same warmth he had carried in his memories all these years. For a moment, Ethan could not move or speak because his heart felt too full. Lyra stepped forward slowly, as if she was afraid he might disappear if she moved too quickly. When she was finally close enough to see his face clearly, her expression softened and a small smile touched her lips. She whispered his name, and Ethan felt tears sting his eyes. He told her that he had kept his promise, and that he had come back for her. Lyra reached out to touch his face with a trembling hand, and for a moment it felt as if time itself had stopped. She said that she had never forgotten him, and that she had carried the memory of his promise, like a light in the darkness during all the years they had been apart. But the moment of reunion did not last long because the Lunarian leader interrupted to tell them of the danger they were facing. The warlord whose ships had attacked Ethan's craft was planning a full assault on the planet. He wanted to capture or destroy the Lunarians to seize the valuable energy crystals that powered their technology. The Lunarians had been hiding for years and had few defenses left. Ethan could see the fear in their faces as the leader explained how outnumbered and outgunned they were. Lyra turned to Ethan and told him that he should leave before it was too late, because she could not bear to lose him again. But Ethan shook his head and refused. He reminded her of the promise he had made and said that he would never run away from her or from the people she loved. He told her that humans and Lunarians together could fight back and that he would help them win their freedom. Ethan began working with the Lunarians to prepare for the coming battle. He repaired his damaged ship with the help of their advanced technology and shared his knowledge of human military tactics with their warriors. Lyra stayed by his side whenever she could, and together they strengthened the resolve of the frightened community. They trained day and night, setting traps and building defenses around the valley. Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose as he fought alongside Lyra and her people. He could see how much she had grown since the days they spent together as children. She was a leader now, wise and courageous, yet her smile still carried the same gentle warmth that had once made him feel safe under the moons of Vexoria. As the days passed, Ethan and Lyra's bond deepened. They would sit together under the glowing trees at night, sharing stories about everything they had missed in each other's lives. Ethan told her about his training and travels, while Lyra spoke of the struggles her people had endured in hiding. Each story made their connection stronger, and Ethan felt certain that he had made the right choice by leaving everything behind to find her. But even as they found happiness in each other's presence, they knew that the greatest challenge was still ahead. The warlord's forces were closing in, and a single mistake could mean the end, for the Lunarians and for the promise that had carried Ethan across the galaxy. On the eve of battle, Ethan stood with Lyra at the edge of the valley looking up at the stars. He could see the faint glimmers of enemy ships already approaching in the distance. He told her that no matter what happened, he was glad he had found her again, Lyra looked at him with tears in her glowing eyes and said that she believed in him. They clasped hands just as they had as children and silently vowed to face whatever came together. The morning of the battle arrived, and the Lunarian Valley was quiet except for the soft hum of their energy shields that shimmered faintly around. The settlement. Ethan stood at the center of the camp with Lyra and the Lunarian leader as they reviewed their final plans. The enemy fleet was closing in fast and they had no illusions about the challenge ahead because the warlord's forces were larger and better armed than anything the Lunarians had faced before. Yet there was determination in their hearts because they knew this was their last chance to protect their home and their people. Ethan had spent the past several days strengthening the defenses using every tactic he had learned in his years of training and service in the human fleet. He helped position their energy cannons at key points along the cliffs and set up traps using hidden mines that would detonate when enemy ships entered the valley. He also modified his own starship with Lunarian technology, making it faster and stronger than before, though it was still not a match for the enemy's warships. As the first enemy ships appeared in the skies, the Lunarians stood ready. Ethan moved quickly to his ship and powered up its systems while Lyra watched with worry in her glowing eyes. She wanted to tell him to stay safe, but the words stuck in her throat. Ethan looked at her one last time before he climbed into the cockpit and promised that he would come back. He could see the fear on her face, yet she still managed to smile at him, and he carried that image with him as the engines roared to life and the battle began. The enemy attacked without mercy, sending wave after wave of fighters into the valley. The Lunarian energy shields flared as the first blast struck, but they held for the moment. Ethan soared through the skies, weaving between the glowing cliffs as he fired at the enemy ships. He was outnumbered, but his upgraded craft moved with incredible speed and precision, allowing him to outmaneuver his opponents. He shot down several fighters in quick succession, yet more kept coming, and soon the valley was filled with explosions and smoke. The Lunarian ground forces fought bravely, using their energy staffs and cannons to repel the attackers who tried to land troops on the valley floor. Ethan coordinated with them through his communicator, directing strikes and warning them when enemy ships were approaching. Despite their efforts, the enemy slowly pushed forward, and the energy shields began to weaken. Ethan could hear the fear in the voices of the Lunarian fighters, but he urged them to hold the line. He knew that if the shields fell completely, the settlement would be destroyed. He flew his ship directly into the thick of the enemy formation, drawing their fire away from the valley. Blasts shook his cockpit as his shield strained to absorb the hits. He targeted the enemy's heavy bombers one by one, destroying them before they could reach the ground. Each victory gave the Lunarians a moment of relief, but Ethan knew it would not be enough unless they could stop the warlord's flagship, which was now descending through the clouds like a shadow of death. The flagship was massive, far larger than any other ship in the fleet, and heavily armed with weapons, capable of obliterating the entire valley in a single strike. Ethan realized that the only way to save the Lunarians was to take out the flagship, but it was heavily protected by a swarm of escort fighters. He opened a channel to the Lunarian leader and explained his plan. He would break through the enemy lines and strike the flagship from the inside, using the mines they had recovered from the valley. It was a dangerous plan, almost impossible, but there was no other option. The leader hesitated before agreeing and wished Ethan luck. Lyra's voice came over the communicator next, and she begged him not to risk his life, but Ethan told her that he had to do this because he could not allow her people to be destroyed. He reminded her of the promise he had made long ago and said that he would keep it no matter the cost. With the mines armed and ready, Ethan pushed his ship's engines to their limit. He dived through enemy fire, dodging blasts that lit up the sky around him. He destroyed the escort fighters that tried to block his path, but many more remained. His ship's shields were failing, yet he refused to turn back. He focused all his strength and skill on reaching the flagship. At last he broke through the final line of defense and soared straight toward the giant vessel. He fired his remaining missiles at the flagship's weapons to create an opening, then guided his ship directly into the hangar bay. Enemy troops rushed to intercept him, but Ethan used the mines to blast through their defenses. He planted the remaining explosives near the core of the ship's power systems and set the timer dot. As alarms blared throughout the flagship, Ethan realized there was little chance of escaping in time. His ship had been damaged beyond repair during the assault, and the enemy was closing in. He activated the communicator one last time and spoke to Lyra. He told her that he was sorry if he could not come back, but he wanted her to know that he had always loved her and that she had given his life meaning. Lyra's voice broke as she begged him to find a way out, but Ethan only smiled softly, though she could not see it. He told her to be strong and to lead her people into a brighter future. Then he launched himself into one of the escape corridors. As the explosives detonated, the explosion tore through the flagship from the inside, destroying its power core and igniting a chain reaction that ripped the entire vessel apart. The remaining enemy ships scattered in panic as the massive fireball lit up the skies. The Lunarians cheered as they saw the flagship fall because they knew the battle was finally turning in their favor. But Lyra could not celebrate. She rushed to the valley's landing zone, searching the skies for any sign of Ethan's ship. Her heart pounded with fear as she scanned the horizon and prayed that he had somehow survived the destruction. She refused to believe he was gone. At last, a single damaged escape pod appeared in the distance, drifting down through the clouds. Lyra ran forward with the other Lunarians as it landed hard on the valley floor. The door opened slowly, and Ethan stumbled out, barely conscious, but alive. Lyra threw her arms around him and held him tightly as tears of relief streamed down her glowing cheeks. Ethan whispered her name and told her that he had kept his promise, just as he had vowed so many years ago. The valley was quiet after the battle, except for the distant sounds of the wounded being treated and the broken defenses being repaired. The fires from the fallen enemy ships glowed faintly in the night as the Lunarians gathered together to mourn their losses and celebrate their victory. Ethan sat on a stone bench near the healing tents, his body covered in bandages and bruises. But his heart was filled with relief because the people had been saved. Lyra stayed by his side, refusing to let him out of her sight. She held his hand gently, as if afraid that if she let go, he might vanish again. And every time Ethan looked into her glowing eyes, he was reminded of the promise he had carried in his heart for so many years. As the days passed, the Lunarians began rebuilding their settlement with renewed hope. They were no longer forced to hide because the warlord's defeat had sent a clear message to the galaxy that they would not be hunted anymore. Other nearby colonies, both human and alien, reached out to offer support, and Ethan was surprised when messages arrived from his old fleet commanding officers. They praised his bravery and offered him a chance to return, but Ethan declined without hesitation. He had finally found what he had been searching for all these years, and he was not going to leave it behind. He told Lyra that his life belonged here now with her and her people, and she smiled with tears in her eyes, because that was exactly what she had hoped to hear. In the weeks that followed, Ethan recovered slowly from his injuries, and as his strength returned, he spent his days helping the Lunarians rebuild their homes. He worked beside Lyra as they planted new gardens and repaired the valley's energy shields. He could see how deeply the people respected her as their leader, and he was proud of the person she had become. Every night they would sit together under the glowing trees and talk about the future. Lyra told Ethan how she had once believed they would never meet again, and how she had tried to bury the pain of losing him, but the memory of his promise had kept her strong during the hardest times. Ethan told her that the same promise had been his guiding light, and that it was the reason he had never given up, no matter how impossible the journey had seemed one. Evening, when the twin moons rose high above the valley, Ethan led Lyra to a quiet place near a waterfall where the air shimmered with soft light from the glowing plants. He held her hands in his and spoke from his heart. He told her that he had crossed the galaxy for her, that he had fought battles and risked his life, because the promise he had made as a boy was more than just words. It was the truth of who he was. He said that now that they had a chance to live in peace, he wanted to spend the rest of his life by her side. Lyra's eyes filled with tears as Ethan dropped to one knee and asked her to marry him. For a moment she could not speak because her heart was so full, but then she smiled through her tears and said yes. The entire valley celebrated their union. The Lunarians and even a few human allies gathered together under the moons to witness the ceremony. Lyra wore a simple gown woven from the glowing threads of Lunarian silk, and Ethan stood tall beside her dressed in ceremonial robes the elders had prepared. As they exchanged vows, Lyra's hands trembled with emotion, and Ethan's voice was steady and strong as he promised to love and protect her for the rest of his life. When the ceremony ended, the Lunarians released thousands of luminous petals into the sky, and they floated upward like stars returning to the heavens. Ethan looked at Lyra and saw the same shy smile she had given him when they were children by the forest pool, and he felt as if time had come full circle. Life in the valley slowly settled into a new rhythm after the wedding. Ethan became a respected member of the Lunarian community and worked to strengthen the bonds between their people and the humans in nearby colonies. He used his experience to help protect the settlement from future threats and to teach the younger generations how to defend themselves. Lyra continued to lead with kindness and wisdom, and together they built a world where no one had to live in fear again. There were challenges, of course, but they faced them together, just as they had faced the warlord's fleet. Sometimes at night, Ethan would take out the small glowing crystal Lyra had given him when they were children. He kept it beside their bed as a reminder of the journey that had brought them together. He would think back to the boy he had been standing under the moons of Veralia making a promise he barely understood at the time, and he would smile because he knew that every step he had taken since then had been worth it. Lyra would curl up beside him, resting her head on his shoulder, and he would hold her close, feeling the quiet strength of their love as the seasons changed and the valley flourished. Ethan and Lyra's story became part of Lunarian history. The elders would tell the children how a human boy had once made a promise to an alien girl and how he had crossed the stars to keep it. They would speak of the battles he fought and the hope he carried in his heart, and the children would listen with wide eyes, imagining the glowing skies and the sound of distant waterfalls. Ethan would sometimes watch the children play and wonder if they truly believed the story, but when he looked at Lyra smiling beside him, he knew it did not matter. What mattered was that they had kept their promise and built a life together. Years later, as the twin moons rose over the valley, Ethan and Lyra stood on the same hill where they had first confessed their love. The sky above was filled with shimmering lights from the crystal rings of the planet, and the air was warm and still. Ethan took Lyra's hand and told her that he was grateful for every moment they had shared, and that he would choose her again in every lifetime. Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder and whispered that she had always known he would keep his promise. Together they watched the moons climb higher into the sky, and the world around them glowed with the quiet beauty of a love that had endured time, distance, and war. And so the boy who had once vowed to marry the alien girl he loved as a child had kept his word. He had found her, he had fought for her, and he had built a life by her side. Their love became a light for others to follow, proving that no distance was too far and no difference too great when two hearts truly belong together. End.